dreams they fade and die.
Things, faces, friends, places, years and moments half forgotten. Laughs, fears, songs, tears. Memories are made of this. I remember a time when the whole German high seas fleet sailed out to meet the British Navy, and yet not a shot was fired. For this fleet sailed not to give battle, but to give itself up, to dip its flags in surrender. For this was 1919, the year of victory. For the vanquished, pay up and look small. For the victors, rejoicing. Parades, flaggy celebrations, and patriotic speeches. Squeeze Germany until the pips squeak. So preached the war leaders, men like Daiz of Italy, Beatty of Britain, Pershing of America, and Foch of France. What did he say? For by and large, victory with vindictiveness was the maxim of the peacemakers. Louis XIV of France, the Sun King, built the Palace of Versailles as a showpiece to draw the attention of the world. In 1919, troops who had fought and won the war relaxed and wandered through its great rooms and marveled at the splendid gardens. The year in which cars trundled through the golden gates of Versailles, bringing delegates to sign the peace treaty which marked the end of the First World War. For months, the nations had conferred in Paris at the peace conference. The French, the British, the Americans, the Italians, the Belgians, the Portuguese, the Romanians. Small conquerors as well as great. Yet, needless to say, the weight of argument and decision rested with the most powerful. Behind guarded gates and gilded salons, they had gone into closed session, and no ordinary mortal could get his face in, let alone a word. But if ordinary mortals had reshaped the map of Europe instead of the professional peacemakers, would they have done any better? Who knows? While they carved up her face, Europe waited their decisions with the philosophy of a patient who has borne many such painful operations, and knows by bitter experience that all that can be hoped for is the healing of time. Already the grass was smoothing the scars of the trenches, and the gentle erosion of the elements was healing the shell holes, the dugouts, and other unnatural horrors. The dead who had once lain haphazardly under isolated wooden crosses now reposed under rows of white stones, neat, yet oddly impersonal. Amid her ruins, Europe was reopening her shutters, putting out her stalls and quietly resuming business. Whatever peacemakers may decide, people continue to produce, buy, sell, and live. In Britain, France, Italy, and other countries, Germans who had been prisoners of war were boarding the ships that were to take them home. Being beaten doesn't deprive a man of the right to rejoin his hearth and family. Swords into plowshares. Now, instead of fighting, the pilots of British military aeroplanes were carrying mails for the Allied troops occupying Germany and far from home. Well, the boys might just as well have all the comforts and amenities they could, for heaven knows how long they'd have to stay there, watching the Rhine, in case anyone did with that famous river what they shouldn't. There in Germany, the vanquished viewed the troops and tanks in their streets with polite, impersonal resignation. Maybe it was because Germany had enough on her political plate without worrying about the forces of occupation. There were a dozen parties with a dozen different answers for Germany's uncertain future. Some advocating them by gentle methods, others not so gentle. And how about victorious Britain? A spruced-up Eros was returning to his pre-war pedestal in Piccadilly Circus, a sure sign of peace. But Eros was back to a changed land, one unfamiliar and perplexing. For instance, a Lady Astor was taking her seat in Parliament as the first woman member. What next? There were hundreds of thousands of men rushing through the demobilization centers, eager to resume civilian life. Hundreds of thousands, each ready to claim his home for a hero. There were the heroes, but where were the homes? Pre-war economics were not to be restored overnight. The first sign of unrest was a railway strike that stopped every train in the country. Britain had learnt to queue in this First World War, and the habit came in handy for overloaded bus services. 2 world wars have made the British into the world's champion queuers. Some bright character with vision offered air service to the places that the trains normally served. It was enterprising and a glimpse into the future, but it didn't help much for those who only wanted to get to the office. For them it had to be lorries and other temporary transportation, and very drafty too. People seemed to accept it quite easily. Were they more hardy in those days? But it wasn't all light-hearted. In strike-bound dockside towns, boarded-up shops and watchful troops, in 1919, strikes were still things to be fought with tanks. But the years of war had certainly sharpened up ideas of fair play. Restaurant workers sought public support for their battle for higher wages with, "You want a decent cut off the joint with 2 veg. Well, we want decent wages." Even the well-to-do had their crosses and sandwich boards to bear. Well-known actress in urgent need of domestic servant.